Welcome back to the Within podcast with myself, Nikki, Wallace, and co-host Payne. We're excited to talk about a report that just came out with the McKinsey report today. So I will guide us kind of through the report, what the report was about. We working with multiple different organizations, kind of all different sizes over both of our careers. We've seen a lot of things happen in the workplace. And so this is kind of an interesting topic that with this report coming up, it'll be kind of fun to walk through and kind of give our take on it. So Allie, do you want to?
Yeah, I think, the crazy part about the report is really that, bottom line is things sure haven't changed. As much as
Mm-hmm.
we think they've changed, they just really haven't. Women still struggle in the workplace. And I think at kind of at the base of all of it, what I kind of read into was it's all about having an inclusive culture, which we
Mm-hmm.
talk about all the time, right? And I think if we can figure out how to have a more inclusive culture and just get this like gigantic iceberg to
Yeah.
shift, we might actually see some change. I just don't, it's just not happening, and women are leaving the workplace because
Yep.
of it. Uh, so in the report, there were kind of 5 areas or 5 or 6 areas that we thought maybe we would dive into and kind of give what we see and even our own experience, because I think Nikki and I both have experienced a lot of this stuff, living life both corporately and out on
Firsthand.
our own. So the first one is women are now less interested in advancing. That's one of the main topics, first topic in the report. And again, if you haven't had the opportunity to read the report, it's the latest McKinsey report, came out on December 9th, 2025. And it's Women in the Workplace 2025. So great report. But that first one, women are now less interested in advancing. And I think, Nikki, you and I mean, one of the reasons we might have gotten out of corporate America because we were maybe not less interested in advancing, but it was less interested in advancing in a corporate environment the
Yeah.
way that,
Everything that comes with
right?
it. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. So is that women, the report is saying that women actually aren't interested, or that it's like a conception or a thought that people have?
No, women are just less interested in advancing.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
it's
interesting.
more about the fact that they're not willing to do the things that they are putting other things ahead of their careers at this point. Probably because when you really think about it, like they're having to forego things like flexibility. They're
Yep.
having to forego, going to their kids' events or, hanging out with their girlfriends. It's just they're having to put all their time and energy into, advancing in their career. And I think that's where they kind of have said, I'm good. I'm good where I am.
Yeah. Well, it's hard. The further up you climb, the expectations and the time commitment and all of the things on top of just life that happens outside of the workplace. Do you think that comes from, just curious in your opinion, do you think that comes from like a societal, um, that we shouldn't be spending that much time at work, or do you think it's like a personal thing? Do you have an opinion on that?
I
Maybe
think
both.
as the younger generations have entered the workplace, I
Mhm.
think they're saying, like, that's not as important to me as it once was. I just think and I would also say, like, that doesn't define you. And I
Yeah.
think historically, your place in the workplace has defined who you are. And I think people just aren't as interested in that anymore. Even men, for that matter. Like, you now see there's more men staying home than there has ever been.
Like, you
And
don't
it's because,
identify with that as much. Yeah.
yeah, like it doesn't have to be, work doesn't have to define you anymore. Where, you think about your parents, like work probably defined either they were, mom stay at home, dad was the breadwinner, and
Yep.
that's just how it was, and no one questioned it.
Yeah.
Now I think people are like, doesn't have to be that way, and I don't want it to be that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to do both as a woman, to take care of the house and do all the things and also have a strong career.
Yeah, for sure. The second one is the broken rung still holds women back, which I found this one really interesting because I have said for a long time, and I think the article lends itself to make this a male female thing,
Yeah.
and I actually think it's more of a woman thing. Like, I think women like hold women back.
Yeah.
Like, in all honesty, like I think a lot of my struggle was not with men; it was with women not wanting to me to be as successful as them.
Yeah, that's
So I
interesting.
think that one is a kind of a big one, which is one of the reasons I loved, getting to work with Nikki, was that we want to see each other succeed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think in corporate America, I think it's just as much women stabbing women in the back than it is men, not holding up or going to bat for women.
Right. It's like we all like, yeah, you have to defend yourself almost at the table. And it's like you have to put your box around yourself and make sure that you're seen, that you're sitting at the table and all of these things. That is kind of when I went out on my own, I don't know, I had a very strong core group when I was at the prior company I was at until kind of like the end. And then it was bad. Like my former boss, when I asked for help after she has 4 kids and I asked for help after maternity leave, she told me to work harder. And I was like, well, that wasn't the conversation that we had about supporting each other 6 months ago. But I do also think like I get challenged a lot because people are always asking like, why do we have all these roundtables. I'm always bringing people alongside of me, and everybody's always like, why do you do that? Like, why, if you're in the same space, why do you want to have your competitor at the table, or why do you want to do these things? And I've just always had such a belief that A, you bring people along, and B, like, people are going to work with you because they love you, not because of necessarily always the service. They probably need the
Yeah.
service. They don't need you, or they need the service. They can pick who they do it from.
Yeah.
So I always feel sad when this stat comes out because I feel like that's just like such a personal thing for me that I've always tried to not do. But you do see it all the time. You see people that are struggling because of their peers not telling them about meetings or not doing like simple things that you're like, really? Like you just didn't want
Yeah.
that person at that meeting, or you didn't want them to know about this event, or you purposely put a roadblock in front of them. I think that's probably a common one that we see, just because you didn't want them to necessarily be seen as better or whatever. So I don't know, this one's always a hard one for me just because I'm such a believer in the other way.
Yeah, I know. I agree. And, I also like have always been a person who's like, I'm going to hire the best person for the job,
Yes.
and they might be better than me. And that's okay. Like if I work myself out of a job, like that's awesome. But
Yes.
that's always been my mindset, is how do you find people that are better than you? And ultimately at the end of the day, they make you better. So
Yes.
this is also, that one struggles. That one struggle is a big struggle for me too. It's like, how do you build this community if you're not willing to, stand up and support other women or men for that matter?
Yeah,
But
anyone. I mean, anybody that's going through life needs support. I don't care what gender or what's going on, and why we put barriers in front of people with that, intentionally a lot of times, or subconsciously. Sometimes it's just who people are, and they don't even realize that they're doing it, which is kind of another conversation. But yeah.
yeah, totally. The third one is women leaders are under extra pressure. I think we live and breathe this one, or I have, I think, my whole life as someone who's always wanted to like do more and be a leader and be involved. And but man, this one, Nikki and I were just talking about this yesterday, just about
Totally.
like you can't just focus on one or two things because you're a mom and a wife,
Mhm.
and take care of the house and you plan the vacations and you do all the stuff that like men frankly just don't have to do.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it's partly our fault, right? Like we're the ones that take it on. Like, and I will tell you, like, I try and push it at my house, like, can you do this? And yeah, but it's generally like on their time, not like we need it
Right.
done now because of these other 85 things that are going to happen, down the line. So
Right.
this one's hilarious to me.
I used the example yesterday that we went on vacation over Thanksgiving, and my husband brought a book, and I brought 5 bags of all of the toddler toys that were going to happen. And I do. This is a topic I've also kind of looked into a lot because I'm like, why is that? And when this was brought to our attention on our board meeting a couple months ago or a month ago, I just was like, why can we not focus? And I'm like, I've actually feel like I've scaled a lot back as an entrepreneur, trying to focus on just what is the main thing. And I kept coming back to like, I feel like I'm doing pretty good there, but then I was like, you take the 10,000 foot view, step back, and it's like, oh yeah, but then when I go home, I, can't even go to the bathroom by myself because there's dogs and there or a dog and, kids and all these things. And it's like life is happening to us in a different way, I think. And I think part of it is just like the nurturing of a woman. Like I think we just naturally do step into more spaces. My husband's actually fairly helpful at home. Like I'm very grateful. I cook. He cleans up after the dinner. He does our laundry. Thank God, because I hate that. But I, still like all the doctor's appointments, all the stuff that goes on around the house. Like I just naturally step in. So I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah. I know. It's also not just about like the stuff to do, right? It's also just like the burden of like the managing the calendars.
Yeah.
And again, like you think about like when you were growing up, how just times have changed. But like, and we were super busy. Like we played sports and we were in everything every single night. But it was like you still like it's in the woman's brain, I feel like, or the mom's brain to keep all of that together. And again, my husband's also really great. Like he's hands on. He takes kids anywhere we need to go, or
right.
Whatever we have to do. But it's still like I'm still the one that manages all of it in my brain. And we have like a fancy calendar, and it's all in the calendar, but it like really doesn't matter. And I know I read a book a couple of years ago that was really about like basically like if you can offboard some of these tasks to like have someone else do them. And I think like, yeah, what a great idea. And if I could afford it, like I would. But at the same time, I still have to manage that person, right? So then it's like one more person I have to manage to figure out like how do I get them the stuff they need. And so it's like such a hard thing when you really ultimately sit down and like think like, why can't I focus just on two things? Well, I can't focus on two things, but because I have 800 things that I have to figure out how to get in and get done in a day.
Life is more dynamic than two things.
That's so true. The fourth one is flexibility is still stigma and it hurts women. Like organizations still have trouble with flexibility. And while I know a lot of organizations say they're flexible, at the end of the day, they're not, because someone has an opinion about someone in their flex schedule, right? So, and in generally, it impacts women most because they're the ones that are picking up kids or taking the dog to the groomer or, you name it, right? This one is one where I'm just like so annoyed by the fact that organizations continue to say like, we're flexible. We want to have flexible work arrangements, but you still need to work 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or whatever it is. But I like think about myself, man. Like I'm so much better in the morning, like 3 o'clock and on. Like you should just not talk to me because I don't know what I'm saying. I'm like not very productive. I'm like in la la land. Like, but at 7 a.m., like I'm on. I know what I'm doing. Like I can think straight.
I know the first time you said that, I was like, what? Allie, for those of you that you're getting to know Allie and I, but our dynamics, Allie's been very good for me this past year because she's challenged my work schedule and when I am working and why I'm working. I'm very used to, so I kind of chuckle when we do this one because I was like the true 7:30 to 5:30 every day, lunch meeting every day, kind of all of that in my prior career. And it's taken me years, like, so we're in year 4.5 of entrepreneurship journey, and it's taken me until Allie came in and challenged that for me. But I think that is just like, so it's a mindset when there is flexibility. I think it's a mindset for like the person to be able to actually take advantage of that flexibility and what makes sense. But okay, question for you. Why do you think that companies struggle when they say they have flex time? Like, why do you think they struggle with like actually, I have an opinion, but actually like giving the flexible schedule or like allowing that?
I think there's two reasons, and this is just random two reasons. One is that they still want control. So they feel like if they allow people to be flexible, then they don't have control. And I also feel like if they don't have butts in seats, they're not productive and they're losing money. So it doesn't really matter, right? Like, especially in a consulting model, like if you're an organization that does consulting or financial services or something where you're not actually producing widgets, like it's really hard to measure productivity.
Right.
And at the end of the day, most employers would say like productivity falls if I allow my team to be flexible. But at the end of the day, no one's really measuring that. Like you can't, it's so hard to measure.
Right.
where because it's not like, oh, I have an hour and I made 85 widgets in an hour. Like, you can't do
Right.
that.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah. I think for me, like just having really struggled with like the other like mindset, like going like, yes, I know I have all the flexibility in the world, but yet like I wasn't giving that to myself. I think it's like the communication around like the structure and like what are the tools or what are the things that we're doing. So like for example, I right now I'm quote unquote part-time with my children. So this topic has changed a lot for me this year because I'm blessed with 2.5 hours on 3 days a week that my kids go to school, and that is when I'm allowed to work for the most part. um Outside of Tuesday and Thursday mornings, we get some help. But I've struggled with like how do people in the workforce that have like a strict structured 8 to 5 actually like do this? Like how do you go to and from and take all the kids and do all of the things? So this has been an interesting one for me. But I do think when I set boundaries with myself and talk to you and like understood and talk to my clients and understood where I needed to be when, and I've held myself extremely um like to the point where it's been hard to say no to some meetings and stuff like that I'm used to all the
Yeah.
time. And I do wish more employers would just take the time to build out that structure and what that looks like, okay, Allie, so you work better from 7 to 2 because that's just cognitively when you're more focused. I wish that more teams would take advantage of those conversations to be able to set their team up for success. And it'd be interesting to see how that would shift the workforce. Long ramble.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many dynamics too. So like, just because our dynamic is one thing doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean that every organization can do it, right? Like, there's of course parameters you have to follow, but at the same time, like, why not work with your leaders to identify what works with
Exactly.
individual employees? And if you do have like a single mom who like can find care in the morning but can't find care after work, like, then, and if they're a good employee, like, why wouldn't you try and manage that differently? Like, it's just like, but it has to be the mindset of the organization that falls down to the leaders. And
Yes.
sometimes you'll have an organization that will totally have this like flexible mindset, and then you'll have a leader who leads differently and says like, no, like, you cannot have the same flexibility that everyone else has because for whatever XYZ reason they decide, like, it's not, the leader doesn't allow it. So it's all about like getting to know your people, and can you figure out like how to make it work? Because if you have a great employee who does really good work, and that you can trust them and you have that psychological safety, like, 100% you should be working with them, or you're going to lose them, because
Yeah.
at this point some other organization is willing to do that.
Yep.
So it's like, how fast are you going to change this dynamic of employers have to be more flexible? They have to figure out how do they help these employees who are managing a bazillion things in their life. And it
Right.
isn't, again, that's not something that person like decided. That's a society thing.
Yeah. I was part of an organization that moved their headquarters to Des Moines 4 years ago. I was consulting and doing some recruiting for them. And it was interesting because I supported operations, sales, and marketing. So 3 very different functions within the company. And their whole mantra, their whole culture is really on flexibility and, the work-life balance. And they get out at 2 and all of this. As you were talking about that, it reminded me as we were building out their operations team and they wanted to bring the call center in-house and they were trying to do all of these things, a lot of the business functions, right? The business things that happen that make the organization money and take care of their clients and all of that didn't support the flexible works. So like they wanted to be the best client facing, service, and they wanted to be all of these things. But as they were building out this model and I was kind of had a seat at the table talking to them, I was like, wait, but you want your phones on until 6 p.m. Central every day. So how are my ops people then going to get out at 2? And, it created this interesting dialogue because I just think and that's I think a good example of kind of both sides of the table. Like the business still has to go on, and how do you create that people strategy? And turns out we were able to talk to folks on the team, and there were some situations with like kids and stuff that later schedule on Friday actually worked great. And can you give some incentives, or there's a lot of things you can do to support that. But that was an interesting one to go to walk right alongside like a company that was trying to balance both. And they were a 400 person company. They're over 1,000 now. locally. So just kind of the how do you scale that and what works and how do you keep getting the business done? But it really does come down to, like you're saying, get in front of your people and figure out what works for them in their life.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that whole idea of your business strategy has to align with your people strategy. And if you haven't even
Yeah.
sat down and looked at those two things, like you need to do that sooner rather than later.
Yeah. And how does that actually work?
Yeah, exactly. So the fifth one is diversity matters to corporate America. I mean, I think this is a big one, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
it isn't just diversity of race, it's diversity of male versus female, it's
Lot.
diversity of thought. Like
Mm-hmm.
all of those things so matter to organizations. And again, so many times, like we aren't focused on diversity, inclusion, and equity as much as we were at one time. And I think it does hurt organizations because
Mm-hmm.
that diversity of thought. I mean, I think we talk about it all the time, right? Like I'm a challenger and I challenge in a way that is like, how, like, could we do this different? Like, what are the other ways that we could do this? And
Right.
just because we've done it that way this whole time doesn't necessarily mean it's right.
Right.
Like showing up every day. Like, how do you do it so that it makes more sense for, you know, the life that you're living right now versus, oh, well, I have to work 8 to 5 because that's what I've always done.
Right.
Well, it doesn't have to be done that way.
Yeah. It doesn't. And it's great.
Yeah, it really is. And the last one is fairness and inclusion really do pay off. And I always say, like, if you are going to do anything, start with inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Like, until you have inclusion figured out for your organization. And, you know, everyone's always like, well, yeah, like, of course we're inclusive. Like, everything that we do, we include everyone. Well, yeah, you might, but you probably also might not. Like, you really have to be thoughtful about your message, your language, your communication, because if you do things like you have a company golf outing and that's all you do for your like company, you know, togetherness, like not everyone plays golf.
Yeah.
Or
drinking.
if every night, yeah, you have happy hour and not everyone drinks anymore. And so being really mindful about the things that you do and the things that you say, and, you know, even questioning people like, oh, you're not drinking? Like, no, like that's a thing, right? Like a lot of, and the generation, that's a true thing in the generations. Like the younger generation just aren't drinking like the older generations once did. So it's another big one.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, diversity of thought, if you're not allowing that in your organization, I think 100% you're missing, you know, so many people, like the great ideas that come from the diversity and of thought and the brainstorming sessions with your people. I mean, people have great ideas, and just different perspectives will bring different too. So
Yeah, you can't even like you can't even have diversity of thought if you don't have psychological safety. So
right.
if people don't feel like they can show up as their authentic self, like they're never going to bring in their great ideas because they're too worried someone's going to talk about them or make fun of them or, you know, not invite them to the next meeting because they talked about something that the rest of us thought was weird. Like it's such a thing that so many organizations like think they have, but when it comes down to it, like they really just don't have it. And I'll ask a CEO, you know, do you have trust on your leadership team? And they'll say, of course we do. And then I go talk to one of the, you know, executives and they're like, no way, I would never say that because, you know, they would say this or they would say that, or, you know, they would have the meeting after the meeting. And that kind of stuff just really hinders a culture and an organization because it does trickle down whether you believe it or not.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, that is, those are kind of the topics that came from that, you know, women in the workplace, that McKinsey report. And I just highly suggest like going out there and checking it out. We'll link it in our,
in the show notes.
Yeah. In somewhere, we'll link it for you.
So before we go, I guess, Allie, a question, just because the employee engagement and kind of a lot of this, and I have my perspectives just from being a vendor for, you know, hundreds of organizations over the years. But what are, like, if somebody reads this article, what are some places that you think, like one or two places, easy places to start with an organization and looking at some of this data?
I think one of the easiest thing is to do some listening sessions with your women.
Yeah.
Particularly your up and coming women, right? Like you don't have to go to your female leaders today. You could start with like your up and coming, your next generation leaders, because they're the ones who are probably not necessarily in their life, like in their like crazy busy time of life. Like they may or may not have little kids, and just helping understand. And you're going to get, and the other thing about this is that I feel like we say, or somebody reads an article and then like we think like, oh, all women act like that, or you know, all generations like are doing this, and that's not true, right? You'll of course have women that are willing to like bust the glass ceiling and you know hang on for dear life. Like you'll have that like 100%, and they'll don't care if they have somebody who's standing up for them, or you know they love the extra pressure. So like you have to remember that, and I think sometimes we just don't always remember that. We just, you know, for whatever reason, we just think that, oh yeah, they're all the same, like all women are the same. It's so not true, right?
Don't count us out yet.
Yeah, exactly. So I think like, but definitely like understanding where women are in your organization by doing some listening sessions or stakeholder interviews, or you know, hire a third party to do it, like us. Like we do that all the time, where it's like talking to these people to understand like how much of this stuff that we're seeing, and whether it's in the media or on social or you know TikTok or whatever your outlet is, LinkedIn, whatever it is, like find out, is it happening inside your organization?
Right.
If you don't ask, you'll never know.
Right.
Like I always say, like if you do not actually go out and find out, and I'm not telling you to send a survey, like don't do that. The survey's not going to help. You got to talk to your people.
Yeah. The listening session stuff that you've brought into the company, into the People Go, and I know that it's probably something that we've all done, but we didn't know exactly. But like the role clarity, the listening sessions, like it is crazy the information that a company can gather from that. You know, good and bad. I think sometimes it's good to also get the good feedback, like you know we are aligned, or we are you know I don't think it's all negative that has come out of the ones that you've done or I've done or whatever. So I like it.
Yeah, I mean, if you could do one thing, that's the one thing I would do, is you know talk to your people, and then do something about it. Like don't just talk to them and say like thanks for sharing. Like actually do something about it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for listening today. We appreciate you guys following along with us. We'll link the article so people can see it, and we'll see you next time.